Hello and welcome to What Are You Saying? Hashtag Waves, where we talk about topics in the news as it affects us all. I am Sayome Saleh, and today, again, I'm alone in studio, but not alone on the show. I have Norma Ifeanyi joining me via Zoom. Hi, Norma.
Hi, well,
Good, good, good. How are you?
how are you doing? Like we're
Um,
Lone Rangers today. I'm representing the virtual space. You're representing the physical space.
yeah, we live, we survive.
Yeah, well,
Well, how are you? How is schoolwork
it's
going?
another sneak out. It's another sneak out for me. Class is ongoing, so I just quickly came out to have the conversation, and then I'll sneak back in. Hopefully, I won't miss too much because there's exam season and quizzes and all of that. So we have a lot that we're dealing with currently, but we're good.
Okay, well, the Lord be with you.
And also with you.
All right, so if you're yet to subscribe to our YouTube channel, it's at Official Upgrade TV. Please head on there and go and subscribe to our channel. Like, share, take out time this weekend to just go on different playlists and just binge watch. That's what I do. I try to just play a mix, let it just keep going. So you hear different kinds of conversations. So tonight we want to have a conversation about the Nigerian economy and what to expect in 2025. And here's what we found as today's quote. It says, "This is a contingent liability to the federal government. It narrows the ability to do more, deficit financing, and essentially guarantees taxes must rise to cover the deficit." This was from a financial expert called Kalu. All right, so as we said earlier, the conversation is around the Nigerian economy, what to expect in 2025. I mean, we've survived 2024, but we don't know what is coming in 2025, especially economically, right? So, considering the Federal Executive Council just proposed a budget of about 47.9 trillion, the 2025 budget, alongside again, I think there has been an approval of 2.2 billion, borrowing. They've approved that. So we're just wondering what the economy is going to look like. I mean, we survived. We've survived. I don't even want to call the thing that I feel about how 2024 went financially, but hey, I shudder to think it can. I'm hoping it gets better, but I don't want to think the other way because I don't know how people are going to cope. But we'll take a break. When we come back from that break, that will be our conversation. But first, let's see what we found in today's news. All right, thanks for staying with us now. International or National Drummer Day, celebrated on November 15th, honors the vital contributions of drummers to music and culture. Established in 2015 by drumming.com, this day recognizes the skill and artistry of drummers across various genres. From rock to jazz, drumming is not only a form of artistic expression, but also offers numerous health benefits, including stress reduction and improved coordination. Now, the historical significance of drumming dates back over 7,500 years ago, serving as a means of communication and spiritual practice in ancient societies. Now, to celebrate this day, consider joining a local drum circle, attending live performances, taking drumming lessons, or sharing your favorite drum moments on social media, and put the hashtag drummer National Drummer Day. Now, this day is a wonderful opportunity to appreciate the art of drumming and its profound impact on music and community. I mean, what is music without the drummers? Nama, you have any fun experience on or fun memory about drumming that you want to share?
It,
I have
so
one.
immediately, so immediately I saw International Drummer Day. My brain quickly flashed back to a not so pleasant experience when I was younger. And probably that was my budding moment as a drummer, and I was had a ruler that I had just gotten, and I was drumming away in score, and somehow it got broken. And that fateful day, my father had to ask me that he needed to use a ruler. And at the end of the day, I got the whooping of my life. And that probably ended my drumming career, as it were. So, but I appreciate drumming. It's something that just adds a unique flavor to any musical experience. And I've also heard Chinese drums rolling out and just drums alone, just making such wonderful acoustic pieces. So
Mm.
yes, it is a very beautiful add-on to the art world.
Mm. Interesting. So my memory of drumming, I've always been musically inclined, right? I took some piano lessons. I used to sing a lot, I used to act, I used to dance, So I remember my first year in university, I had a guy, Andrew, God rest his soul. Andrew was a fantastic drummer. He was such a brilliant drummer. Because of the love of, I mean, the way he expressed that drumming, I actually started taking classes with him. Unfortunately, he didn't live long. So, I mean, in fact, it was because of Andrew. That was the first time I ever experienced what a speedboat was like because he lived in the water side of Delta State. So to go bury him, they insisted they needed to go and bury him in his village. I didn't tell my mother because she was, in fact, when she found out, she was going to, in fact, let me not say what she was going to do, but because of the love for the way he would, I mean, the way he would drum, even if you were not in a good mood, you were not happy, you would dance. You would just forget about your sorrows for that second. Andrew was that good. I mean, it was a big loss to the choir because I was in the choir and, it was a very big loss. But hey, drumming is one thing that I think, it can emote a lot of emotions. It can bring up a lot of feelings. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, if we have not said it enough, we appreciate all the drummers all over the world, be it talking drum, whatever you are, whether it's kunga, whatever you are drumming. Drumming just brings life, to the lyrics, to the beats and all of that. So happy National Drumming Day. All right, so Norma, what did you find for us in the news today?
All right, so this came in very today. There was a fire at Spanish retirement home, and it killed about 10 people. So, an overnight fire at Villa Franco de Ebro in the northeastern part of Spain occurred within the early hours of this morning and killed at least 10 people. And this information was posted on X by the local emergency service. And the Spanish media has said that about 82 people live inside of the home. And this blaze broke around 5 a.m. this morning, which was about 4 a.m. GMT time. And the cause is not yet known, but there's still ongoing investigation about it. Hopefully by now they would have gotten it under control. But so far, at least 10 people have been killed due to this disaster. It's very unfortunate because when you talk about retirement homes, these are where vulnerable people, the elders of society, stay. A lot of it's very common around um, North America and Europe. And these are vulnerable people. So imagine finding yourself in a very helpless situation and you can't help yourself. Unfortunately, 10 people were lost, and we pray that they rest in peace. And hopefully, a lot more people have been saved. But the investigation is still going on, and we'll keep following up the story.
All right. Okay, on that note, I have two stories I'd like to just quickly touch on tonight. The inflation rises to about 33.88% in October, and that has sparked a lot of fears of another rate of course, price hike. So, according to the National Bureau of Statistics, the consumer price index increased by 33.88% in October from 32.70%. And that was reported in September of 2024. So similarly, the month-on-month inflation rate for October 2024 went up to about 2.64% to about 2.52% recorded in 2024 of September. So according to analysts, this was driven rather by high cost of petrol prices and and reduced food supply resulting from logistics and transportation costs. I thought to just keep it there because, again, we're talking what the expectations for 2025 is today. This one, I don't even know if we continue at this trajectory where it will lead us to. Then another quick story I wanted to touch on. There was a lawsuit that was, of course, EFCC was charged to court. So the Supreme Court has dismissed the suit instituted by some states challenging the establishment of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. The Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offenses Commission, that's ICPC, and the National Financial Intelligence Unit. Why did they target all these three what's it called, institutions? I do not know. Yeah. So the 7-man panel of justices led by Justice Uwani Abba Aji, in a unanimous decision, dismissed the suit today for lacking in merit. Of course, we all know that this is, somewhat politically motivated. We have talked about how EFCC, it seems like EFCC is being used as a tool to witch hunt some of these governors and all of those things. So when I saw this, I just smiled. The truth is, for as long as, I say it, I think I said it yesterday. It was yesterday we had that conversation. I'll say it again. For as long as EFCC gives any loophole for people to assume that they are being used as tools to specific people, they will continue to have these kinds of conversation. But EFCC needs to really, really show us that they are independent and they are unbiased. And, if they want to call for investigations, they'll call for investigations. And, it will be a very, transparent process, as opposed, just looking or seeming to be going after specific people. ICPC, I'm not sure I've heard so many complaints about them. Maybe I've not had any. They're not always in the news as much as EFCC. Then the Nigerian Financial Intelligence Unit, I don't know much about them as well. It would be nice to ask our guest, if he has, some, some idea, how well these other agencies are also faring. All right, so we'll take a break. When we come back from that break, let's have a conversation around the Nigerian economy and what to expect in 2025. Stay with us. Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges.
With the growing youth population and very little engagement.
That is a ticking time bomb.
We're blessed people with a diverse culture who have a lot to say.
And yes, we are talking.
It is important we drive conversations that informs, inspires, and influences thoughts and actions.
If we say there is beauty in diversity, then let us embrace our diverse culture.
We must continue to courageously be the voice of transformation.
As we are the hope for the future.
Yesterday's conversation shaped today.
What are you saying to shape your tomorrow?
We know you have a lot to say, and we are here to hear you. All right, on the show tonight, we want to have a conversation around the proposed 2025 budget of course, of 47.9 trillion and what this would look like, what impact it will have, if there's any, in the Nigerian economy. Now, the Federal Executive Council had proposed a budget of 47.9 trillion for 2025, alongside, of course, a go-ahead to loan a $2.2 billion dollar. Right, so the approval is part of the medium-term expenditure framework and the fiscal strategy paper for 2025 to 2027 in accordance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act of 2007. Now, the Minister of Budget and Economic Planning, Atiku Bagudu, said that the government pegged the crude oil benchmark at $75 per barrel and oil production at 206 million per million barrels rather. Now the council also pegged the exchange rate at 1,400 to a US dollar and projects a gross domestic product growth rate of 4.6%. On the proposal, which represents a 35% increase in the 2024 total budget of 35.5 trillion, comes at a pivotal moment for the country, which is grappling with significant economic challenges across various sectors, including chronic power outages that we have been facing that hinders productivity due to inefficiencies and inadequate infrastructure in the power sector. The health sector is severely underfunded and staffed, or rather understaffed, leading to poor healthcare delivery and a lack of essential medical supply in the healthcare sector. Now, of course, when we move to education, inadequate funding and infrastructure contributes to low quality education and hinders human capital development. Our Greek sector is not left out because it's struggling with insecurity, climate change, and limited access to modern farming techniques or technologies, resulting in significant food insecurity for millions. Although rich in oil, the oil and gas sector suffers from corruption, mismanagement, and declining production, further complicating Nigeria's economic landscape. Now, the government aims to stimulate growth and tackle pressing issues, yet concerns about the sustainability of these fiscal strategy remains, a bit strong. Now, joining us to address some of these challenges is someone whose insightful commentary and thought-provoking analysis has been featured in prominent publications like The Republic, The Africa is a Country, and Southern Voice. His name is Basil Abia, and he's the co-founder of Very Africa. I hope I got the name right. Thank you so much for joining us, Basil. Basil, are you there? Okay, today, not today. Inoma, are you there? We could start the conversation.
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you. All right, so Noma, some will say you people have escaped. But tell me, what do you see before we are able to connect back with our guests? What do you think? I'm actually very... So the church girl in me is trying to stay positive and speak Christianese and say, we're blessed. 2025 is going to be blessed and all of that, right? That's the church girl inside of me, which I believe that there's power in my tongue, and I have to be very intentional about confessing something that is positive. Now, the economic realities in Nigeria, right? The way it's going, the projections. I mean, there's been a lot of projections about even how we should expect that by December, the dollar will get to 2,000. Thankfully, it's not going there. Even fuel prices will get up to 2,000. Thankfully, it's not going there. But I don't know. So there's a lot of, there's a lot of fear. There's a lot of fear amongst a lot of people. There's a lot of apprehension. And I don't know if you feel that same way. I'm just trying not to say it with my mouth so that I will speak life into my own 2025. But economically, the way the things are going, I don't know. What are your thoughts? And I believe our guest is back. I'll come back to him.
Well, there's no running away from the Nigerian situation, whether you're in Nigeria or not. Nigeria will happen. In terms of some of us who are, for example, schooling outside, when you want to, if you have not started earning capital in foreign exchange, it's going to be difficult, because if you have to pay school fees and you have to convert the Nigerian currency, the naira, to the foreign currencies that you use within the countries that you find yourself, you will find out that the naira has little or no value. And that means you adding much more. That it means you not being able to plan. That means you being disorganized. That means you being in a vulnerable situation, because if you do not pay your school fees, you could be sent out of school. So these are the realities. It's not just enough to say, okay, I've run out of Nigeria, but when you go, you're being faced with new challenges that you need to deal with. And it's not in Nigeria where you could actually beg somebody, or the currency or the situation is hard, and people will understand. Here, systems work. And if you do not work with the system can't work for you. If you can't pay your school fees, it's unfortunate, but you have to be sent out of school. So these are the realities that you have to face, or people have to face outside of the country. So you're not really running away from the situation in Nigeria. And that is why Nigeria needs to be stable. Nigeria needs to grow in economy, because it has multiple effects, not just for Nigerians within the Nigerian sector, but also Nigerians outside of Nigeria. There are business opportunities, but when you think about the currency, you think about the fact that you're not making profits, you think about the electricity situation, you think about the power sector, you think about agriculture, that we're losing tons of food in terms of quality and the quantities that we normally would bring in. You think about the infrastructure in the system. You find out that it cuts across board. It cuts across everyone, and it affects every aspect of life. So it's not just a situation of, oh, okay, Jabba, those that have Jabba. You are going to face the music wherever you are.
Absolutely.
And you have to quickly come to terms with how to begin to find solutions to the new problems that you're being faced with.
Okay, so let me bring in our guest. I believe that he's back with us. Basil, are you there? I was trying to. Okay, so thank you so much again for joining us.
I hope
All
I
right,
got
so
your name correctly.
you said?
I said I hope I got your name correctly. I said Osas.
Osas, Uwa,
the best way to call
anyone,
you?
we are fine. You can call me Uwa. So I was saying, Basil, I said
Okay.
the way the economy is going, there were predictions that by December, dollar will get to 2,000 to a dollar. There were predictions that we'll get to, 2,000 naira per liter of fuel and all of those things. I'm saying that I'm thankful that we are not there, but there's still this fear. I just read a story, not quite long, about inflation rising to about 33.88%. Like, I don't know. First of all, what's your overall assessment where we are currently in 2024 economically, before we then even move on to what to expect in 2025?
Yeah, as you know, we're still recovering from the reforms of last year. Of course, the core one is the removal of subsidy. And like I always try to tell people, the swiftest price transmission technique in Nigeria has to be when you increase PMS prices. So what I mean by price transmission technique is basically the swiftest way for prices to be hiked is if and when PMS pump prices are increased, because the bulk of what we do as Nigerians has to do with our vehicular movements. Statistics to back this assertion for me, it would be probably the World Bank data that 90% of logistics in Nigeria is carried out by roads. And so most of that vehicular transportation or vehicular logistics is mostly.
Oh, wow. We lost him again. Basil, are you back?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you. Sorry, we lost you again for a second. So go ahead, please.
No worries. So what I was trying to say is that whenever there's pump price increase, the transmission of those pump price increase to other costs and of services and goods in Nigeria is very swift. You don't need to waste time. In 1 week, the person who is transporting you from one point to another has to increase their own price. The person who's doing your hair has to increase their own price. The person who's cutting my hair will definitely have to increase their own price. And that is the same thing in the market when you're going to buy food commodities. There's always a small hike, but those hikes will keep increasing as pump price is obviously elusive or higher. And we've noted that as well this year with the further deregulation of the downstream sector of the petroleum industry, where we saw PMS price increases again from the 6.
Okay, we're having a bit of trouble with Basil's network.
Can you guys hear me? I think I could just switch to audio and see if it's
I
better.
think you should do an audio call because I think the video keeps throwing you out. Yeah.
Yes,
So
it's very
you were
poor
talking
network.
about the fixed.
So what I was saying.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was basically trying to just say that this year we have seen a consolidation of the removal of fuel subsidy with the further increase of fuel price from the 619 naira per liter range to first to over 800 naira per liter, and then over to 900 naira, and now it's 1,000 plus naira. We also saw diesel reduce a bit from the 1,300 naira per liter range to 900 at some point, mostly with the output from the Dangote refinery. But obviously, we know that that stabilization is no longer coming. So we're seeing diesel hover between 900 to 1,000 naira per liter. And these are the two very important energy sources for that. What I mean by that is that the number of Nigerians who generate their own electricity, either using diesel power generators or PMS power generators, they generate, if you do all of the math, they aggregately generate about 40,000 megawatts, whereas the national grid does 3,000 to 5,000 megawatts, 5,800 megawatts at best, and then mostly the last few months, we have just been around 3,000 megawatts or even lower. And then, of course, you know that the grid has collapsed at least 12 times, and then Northern Nigeria has not had electricity for 2 weeks, 2 weeks ago. So yeah, if I'm to do an aggregate summary of the year, it's basically infrastructural deficits bedeviling our growth, one. Two, the increase in energy prices, also the cost reflective tariffs of our, and the segmentation of our power consumption. So the segmentation in that sense will be the division of folks from those who are in band A.
Okay. I don't know if Norma can hear me, but I want to quickly touch on what the statistics that I read earlier about pegging what's it called, the barrel of oil at $75, and also pegging the exchange rate as 1,400. I bought, not that I bought, I actually wanted to get dollars. And, the price currently in the open market is at 1,740. I don't know if that has increased. So when the government is pegging the exchange rate at 1,400 per dollar, how realistic is this peg? And when they say that the projection for our GDP would be at 4.6%, is that a realistic figure? Is that, is that practical based on the current circumstances that we are having right now in Nigeria?
Is that a question to me?
Yes.
Osas?
Oh,
Yes.
he's back.
That's for you, Basil.
I'm so sorry.
Did you get the question?
Well, yeah, I got the question. Pegging the global oil price range to 75 naira per barrel, right?
$5 per barrel, yeah. And then pegging the dollar, our exchange rate at 1,400 naira to a dollar, when the open market is 1,740 naira. That's a lot of money. That's like 340 naira extra. So how realistic is this? And if we can peg the exchange rate, I'm this exchange rate thing, I'm still trying to understand it. I'm actually a very humble market woman. How is it possible that they're able to peg a dollar at 1,400 and yet we're not able to access it? You understand? If you want to buy, you still have to go to the open market and buy at 1,740 naira. So that's why I'm asking, is this a realistic thing, or it's just let us just put it on paper?
Hello, can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, so basically what in budget economics, for the lack of a better phrase, they would always do projections for the next year. In ideal situations, this is what they expect things to be, indicators to be for whatever they want to do the appropriation for. And so in the context of your question, they are just predicting that they expect the global crude oil prices to be at $75 per barrel or higher. That, again, as you do know, 70% of our earnings as a country comes from our crude oil exports. So it's a huge part of our earnings, even with a 9 trillion naira budget deficit. And what I mean by that is the amount of money that government cannot be able to bridge when funding the budget. So they will have to now bridge that gap by either loans from central bank or loans from international aid and financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, and maybe the lack of a better phrasing with regards to development finance institutions, maybe the addition of the African Export and Import Bank, Afrexim Bank, and the African Development Bank. To the crux of your question, whether it is realistic, I think around the crude oil price for next year, if you look at our projections for next year, that's Very Africa, a data insights and research advisory company that I co-lead. We just launched our macroeconomic outlook for next year, basically just projecting what the economy in Nigeria would be. And worst case scenario, we're thinking that the crude oil price would be at $70 per barrel or lower. Now, what's feeding that assumption? Firstly, Donald Trump is now the president of the United States of America, and he has a history of supporting speedy ways to continue to explore and exploit. Environmental Protection Agency of the United States of America. That's the EPA. The EPA basically has injunctions with regards to the amount of exploration and exploitation of crude oil or hydrocarbons that the government should be able to carry out. And so Donald Trump doesn't think that it is necessary, because why on earth do we have all of these resources in terms of hydrocarbons and we cannot exploit it? So he has this precedent where he's going to push for more shale oil fracking, and it is quite controversial. Basically the process with which you do the fracking for shale oil has a lot of environmental degradation and ecological devastation consequences, mostly when you do the fracking of shale oil. But as we have noted in the last 15 years, shale oil fracking has given the United States of America the edge in terms of oil production globally. And so the higher and the faster that the United States of America can produce its oil, exploit its oil resources, and pour it into the global energy market, the faster global crude oil prices can reduce. So we're predicting $70 per barrel or lower, which is lower than the projections of the federal government of Nigeria when it comes to the budget. Now, what are the consequences of that? If at the end of the day, the Donald Trump presidency ensures that the crude oil prices are lower than that $75 per barrel that the federal government is projecting, basically means federal government might even have a higher budget deficit, which is the amount of money that it requires to bridge the gap of its own internal financing. It will also reduce its own revenues. So if it reduces revenues, implementation rate of the budget is almost going to be lower than the average rate of 30%. And if the implementation rate is lower than that 30%, don't forget, of course, 80% of the budget is almost always with recurrent expenditure. That's basically expenditure that you're always going to do or carry out every year. So just think of it. What are you spending most of your earnings on in your household? Mostly for food, hygiene products, right? And then sorting out a few things at home. For the context of a country like Nigeria, recurrent expenditure will be servicing debts, mostly servicing debts actually, and then secondly paying salaries, pension and gratuity. So federal government is only spending about 20% or more on capital expenditure, that is on projects that would actually increase productivity in the country, help fight inflation, help stimulate the economy. And if you stimulate the economy, of course, you can potentially increase earnings for most Nigerians. Don't forget the economy, 60% of the economy is made up of services. You know, services across board, from financial services to hospitality services, to construction services. All of these aggregate into what we call the services sector. And the GDP is dominated, of course, by the services sector. And any economic growth that we are expectant in the country is mostly from the services sector. And we as well as an organization, Very Africa,
Okay. You know what? Let's just run off on a quick break. I think we lost our guest again. We'll be right back. All right, thanks for staying with us. Now, if you just tuned in, we're still having the conversation on the proposed 2025 budget of course, 47.9 trillion. And we're asking what this would be, what the impact would look like, and I'll also be asking the guests about the 2.2 billion go ahead, for Nigeria to take that loan that has just been, approved. And we still have our guest, Basil Abia, with us. Now, please, let's hear what you have to say. Remember, you can join the conversation. Send us an SMS or WhatsApp to 081-80384663. Our phone lines are also open. The numbers to call are 07025007749 or 07014242420. Where do you see the country in the next year, right? By 2025, do you see things getting any better? What are your own predictions? It would be nice to hear what you have to say. Nama, let me come to you. I believe the guest is back. If he is back, you have a question, Nama.
Yeah, in fact, that was the top burner for me, the 2.2 billion loan that the federal government or that has been passed in the 2025 budget. Because I'm wondering, this has continued to increase even up to this point. Now we're talking about 2.2 billion. So Basil, what is the plan? What is the plan to be able to offset some of these debts and these loans that we've taken? Have there been any plans put in place that are feasible towards the borrowing of 2.2 billion and being able to replace that? What is the plan in being able to offset these debts?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
So, of course, the borrowing is supposed to help the federal government continue to carry out the bulk of its reforms. That extensive borrowing would
what reforms, Basil? Because you just said something before we went on the break. What reforms? Because what you said was that 80%, which is what, I mean, it's common knowledge, right? 80% is on recurrent expenditure, and the capital projects just take on it. So, I mean, when you say reforms, I'm wondering, what reforms? Because it's just going to get worse. You are borrowing $2.2 billion to continue to use it to pay salaries and be paying pensions and I don't know where we are going in this country. I honestly don't know.
Yeah.
Go ahead, please.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now.
Can you guys hear me now?
We can hear you now. Go ahead.
So just to explain from the context of the federal government, especially the federal minister of finance and the coordinating minister of the economy, Mr. Wale Edun, that $2 billion US dollars is to help supplement the budget. So it's basically a budget support facility. And while you're right, since 80% of our budget allocation in terms of implementation goes to recurrent expenditure, which is also servicing the debts that we are already incurring every year. I have no doubt in my mind that 2.2 billion US dollars is not going to do much for the economy, if not just further burden our debt profile. So yes, the bulk of that will go into ensuring that we are not defaulting on salaries for federal government workers, and then we are not also defaulting on our debt servicing regime. So, I mean, except, of course, the government is saying that they're going to syndicate that money for capital projects, and they can't syndicate the money for capital projects. So if they're doing that, then it's a plus for the economy, because we should be able to expect some liquidity injections, number of capital projects that we're carrying out. And we all know the multiplier effect in macroeconomics. They call it bidirectionality, basically, which means that one particular action generates a number of consequences. If you're putting in 2.2 billion in a credit or dollar-starved economy like Nigeria, and you're syndicating it only for capital projects, then you're going to definitely see a lot of activity in terms of jobs created, especially in terms of construction jobs created. And then the revenue that will be accrued from the capital project when it is completed. So it remains to be seen exactly where that money is going to go to. But I suppose the best way to look at it is that the money is coming in for the budget. And if you use the statistics of budget implementation, 30% or slightly more in terms of budget implementation rate, and then 80% of that budget almost always goes to recurrent expenditure, with only just a small amount, 20% going to capital expenditure. I think that's the best way to explain what that 2+ billion US dollars loan is going to be.
Okay, okay. Basil, how do we change this economy? Because going by what we've just, kind of like explained, right? It doesn't seem like things will get any better by 2025. What it means is that what I am seeing is that things would just only get worse. Because you cannot, they say the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. How do we flip that? In the sense that we then move that 80% to capital expenditure and move 20% to what's it called, to recurrent expenditure. Because I don't understand how you survive as a business, taking 80% of your income just on salaries. It's supposed to be the other way around. Like, we do things like upside down in this country. So how do we change this thing? What is the way forward? Because if you ask me what to expect in 2025, I don't see us going anywhere. Instead, I see things getting worse, right? So how do we flip this? How do we change? How do we get the economy to work again? How do we become a lot more productive? Because it's like we're dancing around in circles and we're expecting to have a better time next year. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
It's like the dilemma between the devil and the deep blue sea. Having to pick your poison. So we're at that stage, and I think to explain this in terms of picking your poison is that you can start to flip that 80% to 20% number when you start to operate lean governments. And what I mean by lean governments is that the cost of governance starts to reduce drastically. You're no longer having a 90-car convoy or a 50-car convoy as a president. You're reducing those numbers drastically. You're not purchasing a number of, you're not purchasing a private jet, for instance. You're not purchasing a yacht. You're not purchasing a new car. You're making sure that the number of aides that you have employed as the president is very small, maybe 20 at most. And that translates to other senior public officers too. They're reducing their public aides to 10, 15, or even less, to 5. And then when you make those injunctions, your ministers also pay attention and don't have to hire as many technical aides as possible. You don't have to carry out convoys that are guzzling as much fuel as possible. I was headed to Channels on Wednesday for my appearance on Business Morning, basically to explain what.
Oh wow! These are network again.
Intended, but the minister carried.
Go ahead.
Minister had a 10-car convoy. Right after the injunction of the presidency, reducing the convoy to about 3 cars. So these are the issues, and all of these things come at a cost. And don't forget, they are components of the recurrent expenditure.
Okay, which brings me. Sorry, before I lose, because I remember saying that I would love to hear your thoughts on EFCC, ICPC, and that Nigerian finance unit. You understand? Because if president has given a directive to say that, guys, no longer would we be having all those lengthy convoys, and somebody is still doing it, it means that somebody is not doing their job. Do you get my point? So what's your own?
Somebody is just following the lead. Somebody is following the lead of the boss. If the boss cannot cut, I'm telling you the truth. That's the truth. If somebody superior is telling you to tighten your belt, and you're tightening your belt, you're losing weight every time. But you're looking at the person who is telling you to tighten the belt. Their belt is actually about attention to that. You know, we as a society, we observe before we listen. And that's exactly what it is. The body language from the top doesn't support that sort of cut off. And forgive me for saying it, the cuts to governance by the presidency, they've been very cosmetic. We need to see serious cuts to governance. We need to see serious, I mean, I'm sure you've heard of the Oronsanye report.
Yeah.
For the last 10, 15 years of your life as a Nigerian. Nobody's adhering to Oronsanye report. Now we have a new ministry built out of the Ministry of Agriculture. It's called the Ministry of Livestock. You know, and we have many agencies, MDAs, many departments, many councils that continue to exist when they are duplicating basically their efficiency. I can make an example, for instance, with what Elon Musk and Vivek wants to carry out in the American presidency now, where they're basically calling themselves the Department of Government Efficiency, and they are planning huge cuts to.
Oh wow, why are we having this trouble? Norma Efanga, Ministry of Livestock. Sorry. Basil, come back again. He said Elon Musk is planning what? A huge
Elon Musk has already been given the mandate to make cuts to governance in the US, as far as 50%, basically cutting the number of departments and agencies.
Meanwhile, your president here is increasing ministers, is increasing ministries, say Ministry of Livestock. That's why I'm telling you that where we are going, I just don't want to use my mouth to confess it. My own will be good, but I do not see us not getting into deeper mess as a country. I don't see that, because the like you rightly said, the body language is not indicative that we are actually intentional about bringing down these overheads that is killing our economy. Norma?
Absolutely. You have to look at it from another perspective as well. It's like somebody on the Forbes list reducing their cost of living, and then you on the other end, you're not even worth $1 million, and you're adding more household staff. You're saying, oh, my garden needs pruning, I'm going to get another gardener, when you already have one gardener who you should actually, no offense, then try and say, okay, look, it's tough times, I can't afford your service.
Norma, please come in.
Can't afford their current governance structure. The US can afford the current governance structure. I actually do not think that the US has any problem in terms of overhead costs or over bloated governance costs. I think they're operating just fine for the size of the economy, for the size
and yet
of
they are deciding to cut down costs. It's okay.
See, so that's the issue, and all of this multiply or aggregate into the current situation that we're in, where we're doing 80% recurrent expenditure. So to answer your question, one way to flip that is if we have a governance that is leaner and is cut drastically, that's the only way to be able to achieve that.
Wow, Basil, you literally took the words out of my mouth, because it comes back to leadership and what we see leadership as. So what, with all of this that is going on, what are Nigerians and what can Nigerians do as they prepare towards the 2025 in terms of the economy and how things are not looking good at this point, with the borrowing of 2.2 billion, with infrastructure all over the place, with the severe challenges in different sectors, health sector, the education, all of that. What can Nigerians begin to plan to do in terms of budgeting as well towards 2025 and the state of the economy at that time?
Yeah, I think for me, the advisable way for most households, or most Nigerians, it's tough, don't get me wrong, but economically, there's what we call autonomous consumption and non-autonomous consumption. Autonomous consumption basically means consumption that whether the price of things increase or reduce, you're going to definitely have to consume. And one thing is food. So if you can switch to bulk purchases for food commodities, it reduces the aggregate cost you're incurring.
Basil,
can you hear me?
Basil, can you hear me, Basil?
Basil, that is questionable.
Wait, with this jumping Jack National Grid, You said they should go and stock up on what? No. We can't do that in Nigeria.
No, but you know.
Do you know how many people have thrown away things from their freezers because there was no power? You can't. And it's not like we have, so we don't even have those kinds of, what do they call them? That takes out the moisture from, so you can start to have like dry, you dry your stock. We don't have all those facilities. Basil, don't go there. Oh. You should go and bulk buy. It is more painful that you buy something and you watch it go bad. Because why? The power situation is epileptic. Find another solution for us.
I quite agree. No, so what I mean by bulk purchases would be in non-perishables. Okay. Yeah, non-perishables. If you're reducing the number of times you have to go to the market in a month or in a quarter, like for instance, averagely in a quarter, people go to the market 3 times, right? Because a quarter is 3 months. You should be able to go to the market just once in a quarter. That covers, and I'm telling you, just do it experimentally, just experiment with it and you see what I mean. You'd save, not significantly, but you save marginally on the costs you're spending on, again, using macroeconomic terms, autonomous consumption or consumption that is necessary. So bulk purchase is almost the go-to in inflationary times. It almost always works. Thank God for technology now, we can start to sell our labor on the internet for foreign exchange. So if you have marketable skills, you're good. You're good in communication. You're very good in writing. You're good in writing.
Okay, I like where he was going, but let me take Loma. Good evening, Loma. Loma, are you there? Did we lose him? Oh gosh. Loma, are you there? Okay, Noma.
Hello.
Loma, are you there? Good evening. Can you hear us? Okay. Noma Ifanga. Basil, I loved where you were going, but your network cut you off. I loved it because the truth is that right now you have to go and look for other sources of income in this country. If you have to start developing, so you can do multiple jobs, just juggle around it. Take some, virtual work and all of those things. Even me right now, I'm looking for a remote job in case you have one for me. But let me take Loma. Basil, I'll come back to you. Loma, you're live.
Good evening.
Good evening.
my people, good evening.
Good evening, no?
If we are to go by the topic, I don't want to listen to that, our brother that is talking here. Everything we hear in this country is just building a word of promise to our ear, breaking it to our home. So I want to tell us, with the present administration, the system they are doing, we don't expect anything good in 2025, except there is divine intervention. I'm totally telling you. I want everybody, because let me just tell us, even the politicians, if they don't know, after every struggling, after everything, if you fail to recognize that it's a supreme being that owns heaven and earth, and you continue to do things at your own peril, you think that you can do it and get away. Very soon, the God of the common man will start asking you, the opportunity I gave you, what did you do with it? So by 2025, I don't see anything to break. But in other words, I will sound optimistic because our God is alive. I know God, the common man, will save us from this present economic downturn that the present administration, Buhari, Tinubu have put us into. God will deliver us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Basil, let me give you the final words. Noma, do you have any final thing quickly to say? Then I'll get back to Basil.
I was just, in terms of leadership, when is the next election again?
2027, no. And for your information, they are not governing right now. What they are doing, they are planning for 2027. Let's just put it out there. Absolutely. But Basil, let me give you the final word. You have a minute.
Yeah, so just to continue to what I said, I think we have to be able to supplement our earnings by giving our labor, well-paid labor for foreign exchange. And thanks to the internet, we now have remote jobs platforms that can be able to do that. Just short 2-hour long, 3-hour long tasks can earn you as much as $100 or even more. And there's I would say a multiplicity of examples like that, especially in Lagos and Abuja and even Port Harcourt, of young Nigerians just working from the comfort of their houses, their rooms, earning and helping to support their families through the foreign exchange. So I'm encouraging as many Nigerians, not the young Nigerians now, but middle-aged Nigerians as well, that they have marketable skills for the end. I'm sure all they just need to do is get on those platforms, brush up their skills, and be able to get it done. The bulk of some of the tasks that we carry out in Very Africa are mostly carried out by folks who are not our staff. They're folks that just on these remote platforms provide us with certain services. So for instance, if you go to our website and try to read our macroeconomic outlook, it was carried out by people in Bauchi and Gombe, who are very good designers and website builders and developers as well, who are able to develop that platform for people to be able to read about what might happen to the economy in Nigeria next year.
Awesome, good stuff.
The same thing too with our data analysts. You know, most of them were gotten from
all remote workers. So this is to tell people there are opportunities out there. Unfortunately, we ran out of time, but thank you so much, Basil. We definitely would love to have you back again for another conversation. But Norma, we move. We will keep on praying. But thank you for your time. Now, before we go, ensure you subscribe to our YouTube channels at Official Upgrade TV. Follow us and interact further. Drop your comments. Just keep on sharing the links to your family, friends, loved ones, your frenemies, enemies, all of them. Just share the link. Now, if you missed our quote for today, here it is again. This is a contingent liability to federal government. It narrows the ability to do more to do more deficit financing, and essentially guarantees taxes must rise to cover the deficit. You want to increase taxes? Go with us. We'll see you guys on Monday as we bring another great conversation to your screen. Enjoy.
Hey guys, it's Oluchi for Ray's Breakfast. Thanks for always tuning in. Our research has shown that you're probably not subscribed to our channel. What are you waiting for? Make sure you hit that subscribe button below so you never miss out on our latest content and stay in the loop with all things Ways. If the channel grows, it means more great content for you guys. So hit that subscribe button now.